Hey, I'm Marissa, and I'm sitting here with,
Brandon Markell Holmes.
and we just had our second Evergreen session. Thank you for performing. We had so much fun.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you today about your artistry and everything you're doing in life. So I know you're originally from Chicago. What made you decide to move out here to New York?
Well, man, I love New York City. New York has always been my dream. Ever since I was a kid, I always imagined myself in New York. I think for a long time I convinced myself that I didn't have to move to New York to be happy or to like live my dreams. And I think during the pandemic, I realized just how like short and fragile and like just how short life is and how we should just do whatever we want as quick as we can do it. Of course, being methodical and thinking about things before you do it. But, I think the pandemic gave me a lot of confidence. And I think the thing that kind of really made me move was I had spent a month in New York or a month and a half in New York working on a project, an album. And then I went to LA for like 2 weeks. And then I came back to my apartment in Chicago. And I could not stand my apartment anymore. Like I had this beautiful apartment with lots of space and lots of awesome things, and I could not.
I had to have less space.
No, no. But I think it was. I think when it's time for you to move and grow, like even if you make a space like so comfortable and so beautiful and so great, if you've outgrown that space, like you have to leave.
Definitely, yeah.
This is like the craziest thing ever.
It's inspiring to get out of your comfort zone. I've been in New York my whole life, so I'm happy you moved here. But anyway, so I feel like with your music, you have a very coherent sound, but you jump between genres very easily as well. Like you could do a nice R&B ballad or a dance record. How do you approach your songwriting process?
Man, songwriting, I have a lot of different ways. Sometimes I dream of songs, but if I'm lucky enough, I can catch those songs and like make memos of them, and then sometimes like realize them into actual recording. But my process is very collaborative. Some of my records, a lot of my records, I actually build from scratch working with a producer, and I co-produce a lot of my records and I write them. I think for me, I really try to make my lyrics and my melody and the story I'm telling cohesive with the production. I want it to be like a marriage, or like, the sound and the story that's being told matches. I think my songwriting process is does it the chicken or the egg? I come up with the lyrics after I come up with the melody. And then sometimes I like freestyle lyrics with a definite melody. And then I listen back to those lyrics or those like gibberish. And then some words I say, oh my God, that's a good word. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
And then I have to figure out what story I'm trying to tell.
Yeah, I feel like you come up with great melodies all the time, so that's interesting to hear how your process is like.
You know what's funny? Melodies, I don't know, I guess it's a gift from God. I just get them so easily.
Yeah,
like
I've seen it happen. I've seen you working, and it's amazing. I guess going off of that, well, who are some of the artists that have inspired you growing up, and what are you listening to today?
Artists that inspired me growing up, well, first and foremost, Michael Jackson. Secondly, I am a huge Beyonce fan.
Yes, and you do a great Beyonce cover.
I mean, growing up, I don't know. I like a little bit of everything. I mean, my grandmother, she would listen to like James Brown, Bob Marley, Shania Twain, Celine Dion, and so much of my musical influence, I think, comes from like what I grew up around. And my uncle is a house music DJ. So I grew up around a lot of music. So I don't know, like I really love like Sammy Davis Jr. And I love the Rat Pack and like Frank Sinatra and those guys.
Very
they
cool.
were so fresh.
I love that. So also, you're a teacher. How do you think teaching kids impacts your artistry and vice versa?
Well, teaching informs my artistry because I think it gives my artistry a purpose and like kind of grounds my work in intention and reason. I think a lot of times as an artist you're looking for a purpose, and I think for a lot of artists who are fortunate to do art only, I think it's a lot of internal work to do to find that meaning within your work. But I think for me, explicitly having to face every day be face to face with the impact I'm making and be face to face with lives I'm changing and influencing, and I work at an art school, and so I am like a special education teacher at an art school, so I'm like working within creativity but also learning, and I think that is the coolest part, is being able to marry both those worlds together. And I think like, because like I teach history and I teach ELA, but then my students, they see me like, they like listen to my music or they'll see me dancing on TikTok, but then they'll see me in class. We're learning about the French and Indian War,
Yeah.
and they're like, or
Well, it's important for them to see an adult who's able to, have whatever career path you're doing and also doing something creative too, and that's part of your career as well. So I think that's important, like for kids who are maybe like, oh, I like to sing, but I don't really know how to do that.
yeah.
Do you think any of kids have started pursuing art, songwriting or making
Yes,
music?
a lot of my students are like, actually, I would say the production school at my school is kind of really cool for middle schoolers. Like, they make really dope beats. Like, these
Sick.
kids, their beats are so good, and they're like in 7th grade. I'm like, wow.
That's so
Um,
cool.
And so I think um I think the next thing would be singing, songwriting, and I think a lot of the collaborators at the school were like trying to figure out how to create that new sector of the school where there is some like artist development. Not saying we're like trying to turn out little like Beyonces and Taylor Swifts, but some sort of artist development for young artists to be like, hey, this is my sound, or I know how to write a song, or I like created this body of work with my voice and production. I think that could be really cool for young middle schoolers and kids on their way to high school to experience.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. The arts are probably, I mean, I don't want to say the most important, but maybe the most important part of school. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think art is very important, and I also think applied art is
Yeah.
also really important. I think, you know, kids understanding that you can apply like math to something creative or apply
Yes.
literature to something creative and get something that's like scalable and like practical, and like it doesn't always have to be, even though in the perfect world, like this utopian world of being able to live within unicorns and rainbows and like create beautiful art, but I think there's a flip side. It's like, what happens when you're a really good artist and then you're good at math? You become an architect.
Oh,
You know?
interesting. Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I like that. So I guess last question to wrap it up, but do you have any advice for young songwriters and artists who are kind of down the same sort of path that you are and you have been?
I would say learn as much as you can, listen to everything, stay humble. Don't don't ever think you've figured it out, because you've not
No one
figured
has
it out.
figured out.
I tell everyone, I say the older I get, I feel like the less I know.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you become a lifelong learner, you realize that like nothing is impossible because you can always learn.
Absolutely.
you know.
Thank you, Brandon. That was so much fun. We've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm glad you're here. And yeah.
I'm so happy you had me. Thank you.